5 platforms, 1 question. Short version. Zapier if you want the biggest app directory and the least setup, and you're automating simple trigger and action work. Make if you want similar breadth with stronger branching logic at lower cost. n8n if you need high volume deterministic automation and you have engineers who will run your own infrastructure. Gumloop if you want AI native workflows with no infrastructure to manage. Sim if you want AI native workflows plus Apache 2.0 licensing and the option to self-host. Now the 4 things that actually separate them. What are these 5? Zapier is the incumbent. Simple trigger and action automation, the largest app directory in the category at over 8,000 integrations, built for non-technical users. Make, formerly Integromat, is a visual builder with stronger branching and conditional logic than Zapier, a smaller but still large integration library, and lower cost per unit of work. n8n is a developer-centric workflow automation platform with a mature node-based execution engine and first-class JavaScript and Python code steps. Self-hosts. Gumloop is an AI-native no-code automation platform combining a visual workflow builder with AI agents. It bundles model API costs into its own credit system. It's cloud-only. Sim is an open-source AI workspace for building, deploying, and managing AI agents and agentic workflows, licensed Apache 2.0. Self-hosts. Which of these are open source and which can you self-host? 2 of the 5. Not the same 2 on both counts. Sim is licensed Apache 2.0 with no additional conditions on GitHub at simstudioi/sim. Commercial use, modification, and redistribution are all permitted without asking. Self-host on Docker, Kubernetes, or a single command, npx simstudio. n8n self-host via a free community edition, but it is not open source. n8n uses a sustainable use license, which n8n itself describes as fair code. You can read and modify the source. You cannot resell n8n as a competing hosted service. That restriction is what places it outside the standard open source definition. Zapier, Make, and Gumloop are closed source software as a service with no self-hosting option. If your data cannot leave your infrastructure or your procurement team screens dependencies by license, those 3 are eliminated before any feature comparison starts. The precise summary: Sim is open source and self-hostable. n8n is source available and self-hostable. The other 3 are neither. Which of these were built for AI and which added it later? This is the sharpest functional split, and it doesn't line up with the licensing split. Zapier and Make were both designed before AI agents existed. Their core abstraction is a trigger firing an action against an API. AI capability was added to that foundation, and it shows in how agents are modeled as steps inside an automation rather than as the thing the system is organized around. n8n has added substantial AI capability, including more than 70 AI and agent nodes as of its 2.0 release. But the underlying model is still a node graph you wire by hand, and n8n strength remains deterministic execution. Gumloop and Sim were both built AI first. Gumloop's model is workflows for when consistency matters, agents for when flexibility matters, and both combinable in one automation. Sim's model is a workspace where agent blocks, data, and retrieval sit together with 3 ways to build. A natural language control plane called Mothership, a visual block canvas or APIs and SDKs. If your workloads are mostly deterministic, retrofitted is fine and often better. If they're mostly agentic, it isn't. How does each one charge you? 4 different pricing shapes, which is why direct price comparison usually misleads. Zapier charges per task. Each action a Zap performs. That model is predictable at low volume and scales harshly because cost rises directly with the number of steps in every workflow. Make charges per operation, which is a similar unit at a lower price point. Make is generally the cheaper of the 2 for equivalent work. n8n's self-hosted community edition is free. You pay for infrastructure. The cloud plans are tiered. Gumloop uses credits and bundles model API costs into them. That simplifies billing, but means you're paying a markup on inference rather than your own API rate. Credit consumption varies with how AI heavy a workflow is, so a light test flow won't predict production cost. Sim's pricing. Free is $0 forever with 1,000 monthly credits, 1 workspace, and 5 gigabytes of storage. Pro is $25 per user per month with 6,000 credits and a 50 per day refresh. Max is $100 per user per month with 25,000 credits and a 200 per day refresh. Enterprise is custom and adds single sign-on, access control, SOC2, governed self-hosting, and dedicated support. Annual is 15% off. 1 credit is half a cent. Sim also supports bring your own key so you can pay your own model rate rather than a bundled one. Zapier, Make, and Gumloop all change pricing regularly. Check their sites rather than any video, including this one, which has the most integrations. Zapier clearly at over 8,000. That is the single strongest argument for Zapier, and it has been for a decade. If you need a connector to an obscure software as a service product, Zapier probably has it and nobody else does. Make has a large library in the low thousands. n8n's node and template ecosystem is deep and it's been accumulating for years with a large community-contributed catalog. SIM ships over 1,000 integrations across 266 first-party blocks and roughly 3,900 tool actions, plus MCP support in both directions. SIM is an MCP client and an MCP server, so a SIM workflow can be called as a tool by any external AI system. Gumloop has the smallest catalog of the 5 in the low hundreds. Raw count matters less than whether the specific systems you use are covered. Check each catalog for your stack. That's a lookup, not an argument, which can store data and do retrieval natively. Only one of the 5. A SIM workspace includes tables for structured data, files for documents, and knowledge bases for retrieval augmented generation, with connectors to Google Drive, Notion, Slack, GitHub, and Gmail. Those live inside the workspace, alongside the workflows that read and write them. Zapier, Make, n8n, and Gumloop are all execution layer products. They move data between systems. They don't hold it. If your agent needs a database, a document store, or a vector index, you connect and maintain external services for each. That is a legitimate architecture. Keeping state outside the automation tool is a defensible choice, and some teams prefer it explicitly. But it is more moving parts, and it's the reason agent workflows built on execution-only platforms tend to sprawl across 4 vendors. When is each one the right choice? Honestly, and this section matters more than the rest. Do Zapier when you need the widest possible app coverage. Your automations are simple, and nobody on your team wants to think about infrastructure. Nothing else here matches its directory. Choose Make when you want most of Zapier's breadth with better branching logic and lower cost per operation, and you're comfortable with a slightly steeper interface. Choose n8n when you need high-volume deterministic automation, scheduled jobs, data syncs, and routing. Your logic is mostly JavaScript or Python, and you have engineers who will operate your own infrastructure. Its execution engine is the most battle-tested of the 5. Choose Gumloop when you want AI-native workflows quickly, don't want to manage infrastructure or model keys, and are willing to pay a bundled rate for inference. Choose SIM when you need Apache 2.0 licensing or self-hosting, when your agents need structured data and retrieval in the same workspace as the workflows, or when you want one workflow deployable as a REST API, hosted chat experience, and an MCP server without rebuilding it. Where SIM is behind, Zapier's directory is 8 times larger, and n8n's execution engine has more production years behind it. Neither of those gaps closes quickly. The one question that settles it. If you're stuck, one question usually decides it. Does the platform need to run on your infrastructure under a license with no commercial restrictions? If yes, SIM is the only one of these 5 that qualifies because n8n's fair code license and the closed source status of the other 3 rule them out. If no, the decision is about workload shape, not licensing. Deterministic and high volume points to n8n or Make. Broad app coverage and simple logic points to Zapier. Agentic and infrastructure free points to Gumloop or SIM. Every claim here was checked in August 2026. Pricing and licenses in this category change often. Links in the description, directions in the comments get pinned.